The next question comes from Martę Szczecińską, chairman of the board of the Recover the Environment Foundation. The question is, the lifespan for electronics is getting shorter and shorter. A refrigerator used to last 20 years, now it lasts 5. What can we do to improve this situation, or at least safely dispose of these kinds of items? What are the people in the United States doing to deal with this?
Really good question with a very difficult answer. I mean, improving the situation means that we need to get the economy to stop placing a premium on planned obsolescence, building things that they will want us to replace just to be able to churn more product through the marketplace on a 5-year cycle. In fact, with modern electronics, it's sometimes a 1-year or 2-year cycle. And it produces a lot of quote-unquote economic growth, but it's disposing of stuff when they've got most of their lifespan still stretched out in front of them. Really hard to deal with that, except on a personal level where you buy something and do retain it. For very major things, part of it is that the economy tends to value stuff in terms of its present value of future cash flows. And as a consequence, any value that you receive 10, 20, 30 years from now is considered to be substantially less than if you can get that value in the next year or two. It's a whole methodology that permeates modern finance, and boy, that's a big one to tackle. In this new building that we're putting together at the Bullitt Foundation, we built it with a projected lifespan of 250 years. That's not that hard to do with the building. It's a little bit expensive to do with the building. And we could not get any bank to attribute any value to the building beyond the first 50 years, because today's value of any dollar that we got 51 years from now, no matter what the discount rate is effectively zero, so they wouldn't loan us money against that. And we had to pay for that incremental cost purely out of our own endowment. That's not much done by developers around the world, and it's a huge obstacle. With regard to electronics and with regard to appliances, I think the most innovative things have been done in Europe. And this is the sense of lifetime custody, that the company that manufactures the refrigerator or even the automobile that they sell to you has an obligation to take it back at the end of its life expectancy and to reuse its various parts and to recycle those that cannot be reused. When that obligation falls on the manufacturer, so that it's not just build it, sell it, and then wash your hands of it, but with the knowledge that it's coming back to them, far more effort goes into building things in ways that make it easy to recycle them, and without putting, for example, mixtures of components of totally different materials blended together in ways that makes recycling almost impossible. And as that kind of shift of responsibility comes in a legal or a regulatory framework, you begin to see really heroic changes in the way things are built. But that still doesn't get you past that first point that you were talking about with planned obsolescence. You know, on the buildings side, if you look at old universities, including many of the traditional old universities in Poland and in Czechoslovakia, in England, you find buildings that are 400, 500, 600 years old. It's not that we have better architects back then or better engineers or better materials. It's just we didn't have any economists back when those universities were being built. So they built them for durability, rather than as something that became transactional structures that were almost present consumption. They were viewed as long-term investments to create wealth that would endure for a very long time. Somehow that fundamental realignment of values where individually and institutionally we are acquiring things with the expectation that we'll hold onto them and they'll be part of our wealth and our children's wealth and our grandchildren's wealth needs to be reincorporated. When my parents bought a dining room set, they were pretty poor, but they bought quality wood products that they hoped would pass on to me and on to my grandchild, their grandchild when I had one. Today, people, when they're buying that same furniture, are buying stuff out of particle board, where if it lasts 5 years, you're pretty lucky. Going back to quality construction is I think ought to be one of the key things that the environmental movement is proposing. Less stuff, but higher quality stuff.